And welcome to the Midday Show on a snowy Wednesday. I think, to me, this is a loaded show. Usually we try to find one, maybe two, like big top. I think we have three bigger topics today to talk about. M&M Spokescandies, they've been shelved, no pun intended. Is ChatGPT cheating? Kids are going back to school for the next semester. ChatGPT is alive and well now. How are they going to handle it? A local basketball game. I have a little bit of a different take on this. A local basketball game last night ended 98-4. So we're going to dive into what I think is a great conversation about blowouts in sports. So, Mark, before we get to all of that, how are you feeling today?
For a guy whose initials are M&M, I'm doing better than a lot of other M&Ms.
I see what you did there. I was waiting to see how you were going to piece that together, and you did it. Kudos to you. You figured it out.
I did.
You just read about the M&M Spokescandies. Can you give us kind of what is your 10-second summarization of what you just read?
Well, I guess a lot of it had to do with Tucker Carlson, which I guess, at least the one I read, that they changed I guess one of the M&M characters had stiletto heels that they had changed. And then one of them had like go-go boots that they had changed because they were, I don't know, I guess people thought that they were sexualizing these I don't know.
I guess.
Tucker Carlson's comment, which I found to be very funny, is no one's going to be happy until they make everything so androgynous that, what did he say? It's unattractive. And then my thought was, I've always found M&Ms to be very attractive, but not in a sexual way, just in a delicious way. So are we really are we complaining that our cartoon character candies aren't sexy enough? I don't know, but it is such a,
can I start
hold
here?
on. I just wanted to say this. Did you see that Skittles responded?
Oh, they've all been responding.
It's great. It is just so great that this is what we're doing as a society.
A&W Root Beer put pants on their bear last night. I don't know if you saw that or not, because they thought it might be controversial that they have a bear who wears a shirt but doesn't wear pants. So everybody's diving
Winnie the Pooh did it forever.
That is true.
And Winnie the Pooh's like the most famous bear of all time.
This sounds awful to say, but couldn't M&Ms have put out a statement that basically just said they're cartoons? What if M&Ms just released a statement that just said they're cartoons, everyone relax? Would that, I don't think that would have gone over horribly.
Well, I think it would have been great. Yes, that would have been great. There's you brought this up. You stole it from Ricky Gervais a long time ago, but I don't know the exact, I think it's funny. You think it's offensive, and that's why I'm happier than you, or something along those lines.
Yes, one of my favorite lines from a comedian ever is, and you're right, it's Ricky Gervais. He says, "I found it funny. That's why I'm happier than you." And that's kind of the whole thing here with the M&M candies is anybody who was offended by the M&M candies, you're just not a happy person. You're not. They're cartoons for a candy. I don't know.
You're right, and that's the thing that we have to grasp as things that society finds appropriate or inappropriate or offensive or non-offensive is mostly gray area. Now there are crimes, there's abuse, and there's all these things that everyone agrees is wrong, but you can find in conversation one person will tell a joke that they think is funny, and another person will tell it that they think is offensive. You can tell a joke to a room of a dozen people. If one of them finds it offensive, does that mean it's offensive? If it's not, So I mean, that's the whole you're not going to please everyone. And when you take is putting stiletto heels on an M&M, and I don't remember which color got the stilettos. I don't remember
Sure.
which color, but like really. And if you as an adult, I mean, my opinion is if you're as an adult are looking at this and you're bothered by it, it would have been like being bothered that Winnie the Pooh never wore pants, but he had a shirt on. And you're just like, really?
I didn't even notice they had shoes. Like I've never to look at the M&M Spokescandies shoes is just something I've never done. The other debate that's going on is, do you think this is real or not? So as someone commented, think of all the free publicity that they are driving. There's another comment here. It's their Super Bowl moment. Some people are saying this is all a razz. This is just something they're doing for publicity. It's got everyone's talking about M&Ms now, and it was free. And all they had to do was release a statement that they were going to get rid of the Spokescandies. And now you have people coming to the defense of these Spokescandies. And so my question to you is, do you think that there's a ruse here? Like, do you think a little bit of this is played up and this is strictly for marketing purposes?
If they did, good for them. Because they have, I mean, just think of, as quick as society's changing now through technology, through TikTok and through all these things, that getting your message across is it's more, I don't know if it's more challenging than ever, but we see it in advertising and how, these, what are the people on Instagram, the influencers, like there's just the world is changing rapidly. And if they figured this out and they're like, hey, Tucker Carlson walked us into an easy promotion, right, then hey, good for them.
If this is marketing, the ingenious of this is you now have everybody defending the Spokescandies.
Correct.
Like it's not like it's like a two-sided. I mean, most people that I talk to, they are like, this is absurd. I can't believe they're getting rid of the Spokescandies, like justice for the Spokescandies. From that marketing play, that aspect is ingenious because the only people that got rid of them was M&Ms. Like the company decided to get rid of them. Like nobody else decided that the Spokescandies needed to go. So the marketing genius is people are defending them against their own company getting rid of them. I don't know. It could be an ingenious marketing ploy, without a doubt.
No, and you said, everyone you've talked to thinks it's absurd. Who doesn't think it's absurd? I mean, what is the argument?
I think, well, okay. So if we're playing devil's advocate, because obviously this isn't how I feel, but you and I always we like to do this stuff. The devil's advocate argument could be inclusion. For example, who is viewed as the female M&M. The female M&M has for years been sexualized by the red and yellow, the classic M&Ms, right? Yellow and red are like the two classical M&Ms. They have always sexualized the green M&M. And so there is this idea of very rarely have the male M&Ms been sexualized. Now, there are commercials in the past where the male M&Ms are chased by females, like real female sponsors that they have had in commercials. However, the actual M&Ms themselves have only ever sexualized the female one. They've never sexualized the male one. So that would be like the psychoanalysis of like way too deep into the world of the M&M Spokescandies if you wanted to make that argument.
And I do get what you're saying. I think there's an aspect of, God, this is, we started with this silliness of M&Ms and now we're trying to get, now I'm risking delving deeply into societal, but it's one of the aspects of the whole, like the women's lib movement and the whole, like that women don't want to be seen as just as sexual beings, which I get that, but there's this level underneath it all where everyone also wants to be seen as a sexual being. So it's not just like mutually exclusive. Like there are some women when they walk down the street and a guy whistles at them, they're offended. And there's some women when they walk down the street and a guy whistles at them, it made their day. And it just kind of depends where you are in life, where you are in your headspace, where you are in that moment. And, if your boyfriend just broke up with you because he said, whatever, and then you walk down the street and some guy whistles at you, it probably didn't make your day worse. And as people are like, oh, it's just really like there's so it is the whole.
The Tucker Carlson part of this is fascinating too.
The Tucker Carlson part just makes it comical.
It makes it comical. And it always comes back. You and I talk about this a lot. There are a lot of people on the right and the left that are prominent figures that when they say something, it almost merits a reaction that you wouldn't get from somebody else. And so if a John Oliver made a comment about the M&Ms, are the Spokescandies tucked away right now? Probably not. Tucker Carlson makes a comment about the M&Ms. Now we're in this whole marketing ploy. Is it real? Is it not real? We're shelving the Spokescandies. The Carlson's ability to say something and people running with it on both sides is wild. I don't want to call it power, but his presence in the world when he decides to talk about something is bigger than what I think people realize. It's unbelievable.
So do you think there's a side of it that they're just trying to make fun of Tucker Carlson?
I could totally see that. I think there's a side of it where, like you said, because it's Tucker Carlson, I think it gives them leeway. Like, I think it gives them rope to do some stuff that they wouldn't maybe have tried if somebody else said it or if it was just like a random thing. But now you get Tucker Carlson involved. He's saying stuff about it. Now all of a sudden it's kind of like, well, listen, if Carlson, like, we could probably let's shelve him and ha ha ha. And so yes, like, I do think that certainly gave them the opportunity. I don't know if it's real or not. I've read a couple of stories on it. I can't decide. I'm not sure.
That's a good point. With his audience, does Tucker Carlson, is he becoming the Skip Bayless of news? Is basically what I'm getting.
No, it's a very valid point. Like, I think if you're the M&Ms, you could do something right now, and you knew worst case scenario, you weren't to a faction of society, you weren't going to sound crazier than Tucker Carlson, right? So, like, let's shelve the Spokescandies and get some publicity out of it. It's very, very possible. Very possible.
It's a crazy world. It is. And to get behind the scenes, if they're like, nah, we had no idea, we just kind of stumbled into it. Or then if M&M's is like, oh no, we knew what we were doing. We were like, hey, we have a chance here. Let's do this. Let's see if it gets any traction.
It also showed, like we were talking about, some of it shows the worst parts of society. So even some like cancel culture, getting rid of candy M&Ms, even if it is a marketing ploy, like, it's kind of like, if this is the world of marketing now where we're just like making up these fake controversies for the publicity, then that, like, even that's not a great thing. On the flip side of that, though, some of the stuff that other companies have been doing to respond to this is hilarious. That marketing is almost better than this if it is marketing. The A&W root beer putting pants on their mascot is great.
Yes.
Really.
Did
really
you know
great.
Back in the day? You didn't know this, so I'll tell you. A&W root beer was there was a restaurant chain that I think they still know, but that's the only place you could get it at first.
Wasn't it like a roller skate-ish? Like they came up, they roller skated up to your window?
I'm not sure, but
Okay.
It was kind of like a home cooked good old Americana, and they had this, and it was the only place you could get it.
Yeah. What were they, like a drive-in? Like, I thought it was like you ordered from your window, the lady
might have
been a tray. I think that's what it used to be. Brad asked, are people buying more or less M&Ms today? That is the question. If it is a marketing play, did they do themselves a favor, or are they hurting themselves because people like you and I are coming on here and being like, this is a joke, or they're M&Ms and it doesn't matter. If you were going to buy M&Ms today, you're buying them regardless.
I just think the whole tip of mind, when there's a lot of people right now that thought about M&Ms that wouldn't. I mean, why would you think about M&Ms? And when we started, before we even got on the air, and you're like, we're going to talk about the M&M controversy, I thought you meant the rapper. I was like, oh, what did he do? Like, what happened? You're like, no, the candy. Didn't you read it? So, I think with lots of publicity like this, there is, I do. I think in most cases, all publicity is good publicity, and this just gets people talking about it. And when you walk through the checkout line at your local grocery store or your local convenience store, and you're like, hey, there's all these candies to choose from. I was talking about M&Ms today, so
it's an impulse buy for sure. I don't know how much marketing will change that impulse buy when you're walking through the aisle. I think you're still, even if you were mad at M&Ms today, I think you're still grabbing them as you go through the middle thing.
Are you and this is a question that everyone in America should be asked. Are you a plain M&M guy or are you a peanut?
Plain. I don't love the peanut ones.
If I have the choice, I'm getting the peanut. I think they're delicious.
You and I have talked about this, though. I'm one of the only people I've ever met that I love chocolate. I love peanut butter. I do not like them together.
Oh, that's true.
So a peanut M&M is kind of like my worst. Like, I don't really like that.
And when I'm eating a peanut M&M, I'll bite it in half, and then I try to pull the peanut out. So what I'm left with is like a half of a candy shell with chocolate. That's how I try. That's how I eat. Not everyone, but a lot of them.
It would take you forever to get through the bag.
It helps savor. Yeah, I don't just throw a handful in my mouth. Like each one, there's a bite. Yeah, there's a process.
Newsjacking, the practice of taking advantage of current events or news stories in such a way as to promote or advertise one's product or brand. After this conversation, I'm going to lean towards that's what M&M's is doing. They heard Tucker Carlson talk about their mascot, and they leaned into it. I think that might be what's going on.
I think it might be. So now, just to take it a step further, we should get Tucker Carlson to talk about us,
and then lean into it. Soon to be, almost Emmy nominated.
And so we could be soon to be Emmy nominated, and also soon to be Tucker Carlson canceled.
No, I think it's if Tucker Carlson isn't canceled yet, there is no canceling Tucker Carlson.
No, he's trying to cancel us. That's what we're going to try to get.
So you think our best marketing play is to try to get canceled by one of the most prominent, powerful news anchors in the country?
Yeah.
Let me know how that goes for us. Rant says peanut M&Ms. Heather also says peanut butter M&Ms are the best as well.
Oh, no. Not peanut butter. Peanut.
No, right. She is giving you her opinion. I know that's shocking that somebody would have an opinion other than ours, but
well, then just to clarify, she's wrong. The peanut.
Can opinions be wrong? Can opinions be wrong?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. The other one I want to talk to you before we get to the local basketball game. ChatGPT. You have kids that went back to school this semester. Have you probably have not personally used ChatGPT? Is that fair to say?
I have not.
For those who don't know, artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, you give it a prompt or you can ask it something and it will give you a fairly new answer, implying like the database of it only goes to like 2020. So it has historical facts. It doesn't have like current events, but it has everything like prior to 2020. It will give you a response that is personalized in a way that doesn't necessarily plagiarize other work. So you're basically getting your own answer or result from ChatGPT. This is obviously a nightmare for high schools, for colleges, anywhere in the world where stuff is written and graded. Right now, colleges and universities are trying to figure out how they're going to deal with this, and it's going to be very, very interesting. Do you think ChatGPT is cheating?
Well, it certainly changed it. It has taken away the, if you want to prove someone can write, then it's, yes. The other aspect is it's kind of like when the calculator came in with math. If someone knows how to use the technology, do you care if they can write?
Mm.
And that's the aspect. If someone goes to a job and they need to write a summary of something for the boss, do you care if they wrote? It's more about the information than it is about who came up with the information. So So yeah, I don't know the ability. I remember when we were a kid, they talked about being able to do long division with paper and pencil. Like, does anyone care if you can do long division? It only matters now if you know how to find the calculator on your phone. So it is that changing aspect of society. Once upon a time where people used to use slide rules, and now I have a mathematics degree and I never used a slide rule. I don't know how it works,
Yeah.
and it just I don't want to say it's good or bad. It's just the world is different now, and
So
yeah,
I have been using it now for about 2.5 months, on and off. Been tinkering with it, testing it, trying some things out. What I have noticed most is if you're very much like the calculator, it can do things for you, but you still need to know what to ask the calculator. Like, you need to understand, if you want to come up with an average, you need to know what number goes on top and what number goes on the bottom, right? Like, there's still basic principles of knowledge that you need to understand to make the calculator benefit you. ChatGPT is very similar, because what it does is it takes some of the writing aspect out of it, but you still need to know how to edit it to get what you want. It turns writers into editors, is what I really believe it does. So instead of taking the time to write this 1,000-word piece or article or essay, it writes it for you, and now you're reading through it and going, I liked this, I didn't like that. I'm going to change this word here, I'm going to move this paragraph. So really what it does is it gives you your storyboard for what you're writing, and it allows you to kind of poke and prod and decide what you want out of it. I don't know if that means it's cheating or not. I think some people think it just gives you what you want, you copy and paste it, and you drop it in. And a lot of people, if you do that, you're not going to really get what you want out of it. Like a writer or a student isn't going to pass everything if they're just copying and pasting the first response they get from it.
Well, I just think it's another form of technology that you can use as an aid, and the smarter the people are, and the better the people know how to use it. It's just like everything else. I mean, you take teachers now; they have more resources with the internet than they've ever had before. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't mean that there's still teachers that are better than others, because they get it, or they know how to incorporate it, or they know how to relate it, or whatever the case may be. So yes, there will always be that personal nuance, just knowing your field. And so yeah, but there's a lot of aspects where, from a teacher, they're just like, I need 15 minutes to kill and I need something, and they can just totally borrow something. Coaches do it, parents do it. There's lots of aspects where you don't need something special. You just need something ordinary. And
so let's put on our teacher professor hat. What are we doing? Like, we know our students are using ChatGPT. Are you still giving out paper assignments?
It's a good question. What's going to happen now in the the kind of the punch counterpunch world is the academic establishment is now going to figure out what's the best way to give assignments, what's the best way to make sure. Now, but also look at it this way: wouldn't you think, if you gave an assignment that says, I don't know, write the history of Blossburg, and you gave it to 25 students, and 23 of them put it in ChatGPT, wouldn't those look really similar?
Yes and no. I mean, that's ChatGPT is unique in the sense that, like, the more you use it, the more it is conducive to you. It starts to figure out what you yourself look for, right? Okay. In your style of prompts. And so there is an aspect of ChatGPT where it's going to reflect a piece of you and your prompt that other people might not get. Because a lot of it depends on how you ask the question. So, like in the example you gave, if I were to ask it to write me a paper about Blossburg, I might say, focus on the coal industry and tell me more, before 1950 than after. Like my prompt's going to vary from your prompt, and thus my response is going to vary as well.
Okay. Then I think the teacher or the professor, it will be their job to make the prompt so specific that if either that or they make it so open-ended. They're like, write an article, give me 1,000 words on what makes you happy.
So so if you're a writing teacher, there's ways to do this where like maybe you make it so individualized that it's hard for, like, it's not a historical reference paper, right? Like you're coming up with, so from that aspect, I get it. If I'm a history teacher, I don't know if, like, all I want them to do is know what happened, right? I don't really care so much about their ability to necessarily write. It helps, it's convenient, but like, if I'm a history teacher and they type in a prompt for ChatGPT and they had to read every fact that ChatGPT just spat back at them, and now they're editing it and they're turning it in, didn't they kind of get the same thing? Like, aren't they learning the same facts and bits of information just in a different manner? And because I'm not a writing teacher, my main focus isn't so much that they can write. It's more or less like, did they come up with the facts that they needed to? And do I believe that they have retained it? If that's the case, then I don't know if I need to change anything.
Well, I think most of the writing of history would be not as to like what happened, but why it happened and what its influence is now and things like that. So, yeah, if it's just about facts, then exactly. So, and that is true. It's depending on what lesson we're trying to get across, and if you just want to make sure that the kids know what happened at Gettysburg and who were the generals and what was the significance of it and all that, then yes. But if you want to extrapolate further as to how did such and such affect society today, then that would be interesting to see how ChatGPT handled it.
Yeah. A couple of just minor things I pulled up here. Seattle schools have banned ChatGPT. So as of right now, if you get caught using it in the Seattle school districts, I don't know if it means expulsion. I don't know if it means detention. I don't know what the actual punishment is, but they have said like no ChatGPT. If you're caught using it, you're done.
How would you get caught?
That is one of the bigger questions. So as of right now, it's very difficult. They can't really tell plagiarism through ChatGPT. There is one company that I've read about that claims they can tell with certainty whether it was AI, artificial intelligence, or whether a human wrote it. And right now they have like a 75% above success rate in doing this. So I don't know, like, does every school have to hire a program that can tell? Like, if you're the Seattle School District, are you going to hire a program that you run this stuff through that with X amount of certainty tells you if it's AI or not? I don't know. I think it's going to be impossible. I don't think that's a solution.
I do too. I think it'll be impossible.
Another one that was interesting, one teacher came up, and I'm excited to see how teachers are going to adapt, not just try to shun this. Like, I don't think the Seattle School District has the right answer. Like, it's not going anywhere. Artificial intelligence is here. They're going to have to learn how to use it. I think they're actually hurting their kids by not diving into it, because if it becomes job creation and your kids aren't allowed to use like prompt-driven AI, that hurts them. It doesn't help them.
Right. It is the literary world of a calculator.
Yes. I think one of the things that's very interesting, there's an article on the Hill about a teacher who is using ChatGPT searches, like ChatGPT scavenger hunts. So basically, you have to use ChatGPT to find the answers. So you have to figure out what is the right way to ask in the prompt to get the answer you need. And I think that's ingenious. Like, I think that is an example of diving into it instead of just like hair on fire running around the room like it's the end of school as we know it.
Correct. I agree.
Let's dive into the last topic. For those who don't know, I'm going to use the doc because he's been on the show before. Chris Massey, He had a tweet last night about the St. John Newman girls won their third straight game. They defeated Columbia Montour Votech 98-4. So I tried to verify this online. I went to Max Preps. I went to a couple of other places. My main source right now is Chris Massey. The doc is usually on top of these things. So if any of this information is incorrect, we apologize. But as
now,
of right now,
let me just jump in. Doc is a 49er fan. They just won. They're a game away from the Super Bowl. He's not totally in his right state of mind right now. He is a little bit wound. So if there's ever a time for him to make a mistake, it's this week, although I'm guessing he didn't get this wrong.
I agree. So St. John Newman girls, third straight win. They defeated Columbia Montour Votech 98-4. Obviously, 98-4. I think this is an interesting conversation around blowouts in sports. I think there's a conversation about sportsmanship, and I think I lean more towards the middle on this than most, because most people's response, because we had a meeting earlier and we were talking about this a little bit, most people's response is going to be devastation. Like, most people's response is going to be not good to seeing the score 98-4.
Correct.
So there's some comments online. This is inexcusable, different things. I personally have not seen the game. I actually went around. I clicked on every YouTube link I could find to see if I could find footage of this game. I could not find it yet. I'm eventually going to dig it up. I'm going to get my hands on it at some point. There are people responding that have said that the starters for Newman only played in the first half. We don't know what type of defense they played. We don't know any of this. Here's what we do know. We do know that the Newman girls are much, much improved from years in the past. They are very, very competitive as opposed to, say, 5 years ago. So they're a good basketball team now. Columbia Montour Votech has struggled in basketball. I just know from coaching on the boys' side, they've struggled a lot on the boys' side. And I know that on the girls' side this year, it has been a sincere struggle for them to put a product out on the floor that can compete. And that happens. Like, there are years where high schools are on top. There's years where they're on the bottom. It is what it is. I said to you that I think this is a result of both. I think this is a result of a team that is up and coming. I think it's a result of a team that is playing well. I also think it's the result of a program that has lacked stability and the resources to really compete at a level to stop or prevent this from happening. And I think both of those things can be true at the same time.
And I agree with that. But in the moment, when you show up for a 32-minute game and understand the mercy rule is in effect on this.
Yeah.
So once the second half starts, I don't know what the halftime score was. It's, you can only control what you can control. And for Newman, there are so many countless ways to call off the dogs. I just don't. I don't know. I just don't get how this happened.
For people who have never really coached basketball before, that have never been in the thick of it, every coach, team, program, we all kind of have our beliefs of there are these markers that kind of dictate when you call off the dog, and everybody's different. I played for a coach that once you were up 20, you subbed everybody out. That was and then if it went under 20, you put everybody back in. Most of the time when I was coaching, 30 was the number. Once it got to 30, in the first half, you stopped pressing. You played half-court basketball. I also coached for a program where when you got close to 100, you held the ball. You no longer were trying to score 100 points. So there's all these unwritten rules. The rules that I coached with are different from your rules or somebody else's rules. I would be curious to know, in a 98-4 game, it sounds like the starters didn't play in the second half. It's always that touchy situation of if you're not playing kids who get to play a lot, it's hard to tell them to not try. That's to me, that's the cardinal sin, is telling your kids not to try. I think obvious things are you take off your press. If you're pressing, you don't press anymore. A lot of teams will switch from man to zone, right? But you and I talked about before, that doesn't always work either, because sometimes if a team's bad, guess what they're not very good at? Shooting. And if you're playing a zone, it's harder to get to the rim sometimes. So now they're just chucking up 20-footers. The point I'm making is I think it's a very convoluted conversation, and I think the conversation is going to be very one-sided today, is what I'm saying.
Well, I think there are two different conversations. There's the Columbia Montverde Tech side of sports and basketball and where they're at, and there's the whether it's St. John Newman or whether it's anybody who's up big, how you handle yourself, when you're up big. And I've always said, when I coach Little League and you run into some games like this, and I've had those people that are like, oh, you've got to teach the kids this. I think you show up at we always talk about sportsmanship, and I think in life we want to teach compassion, and you show up at the game to see who wins. That's the number one goal. It's like, this is why we're playing the game, to see who wins. Once you realize who's going to win, then now beyond that, now we go to step two. Now we teach people how to be decent, civilized human beings. And in a game like this, when you're up, it wouldn't take very long to realize who's going to win. Mm-hmm. And I know, like the aspect of, you said, when you play zone, if a team can't shoot, I get that. But if you play zone, a team can get shots off. And if you're playing man and they're losing 98-4, then you're probably just taking the ball from them and running down the lane.
Can I give one more generality that goes along with it? So the other, and this is just a basketball conversation because, again, I haven't seen film of this game. So I'm not implying this is what happened. But just another example of how these things can happen. I think one of the things people always talk about, the emphasis on the team that's winning, right? And now the coach is like, we're up this much. Do I play zone? We're up this much. Take off the press. Sub the starters out. Very often, we never talk about the emphasis on the losing coach. And the reason I bring that up is I have seen games where a team will be up 40, 50 points, and the winning team's coach is still coaching the kids on the floor. Like, he's got his third string in, but he's still coaching them because the kids deserve it, right? Like, he's not going to sit down and kick his leg up just because player 11 through 15 are on the floor. But when you look down at the other end, the other coach has given up, and he's sitting on the bench because he doesn't know what to do. And so what happens is that compounds, right? Like, you have one coach that, even though they're up 40 or 50, is still like, hey, like, good try, but next time did it, and we're doing this now, and get back. And then you have another coach who has thrown in the towel, and then at the end they go, well, the other team, the other coach, and it's like, I just watched you sit with your leg kicked up. Like, I don't really know if I'm just going to sit here and say that none of it falls on. Now,
are you saying that because I have my leg kicked up?
That's what I'm saying. Now, again, a generality. I'm not implying that's what happened here. I haven't seen film of it. I'm just trying to prove points that, like, whenever we see a score like this, our brain immediately goes to the worst case scenario. Like, it was Lord of the Flies and people were just, like, pummeling the other team. And all I'm saying is, like, if you really sit back and watch some of this stuff, there are reasons that we wouldn't even think of how a score gets to this point. And sometimes you think you're helping and you're not, like playing zone.
This is what I would have done. And I'll just say this is what I would have done. Because as a guy, and I'll go back to Little League, when I've been in Little League, I was coaching a girls softball game. And one of the challenges of girls softball, which is different than boys in Little League, is because you pitch underhand. You can take any boy and put him on the mound, and he has a chance to throw the ball over the plate because you have pitching, you have a windup, but you're still throwing the ball like you throw it every other time. On a girls softball team, there is often only like 2 or 3 girls who have a chance because of the windmill throwing it underhand to throw it over the plate. So we're at a game once, 10, 11, 12-year-olds. And the first time through the lineup, we put one ball in play and we get 8 walks and there's nobody out. We have 6 runs in, bases loaded, nobody out. And I'm coaching in the third base box, and their dugout was on the third base side. So I'm talking to their coach while this is going on. And I said to him, is this your regular pitcher? And he said, no, our regular pitcher's on vacation. So this is our catcher. So I said to him, once we get through the lineup, I'll get you out of the inning. And in girls softball, in Little League girls softball, there's a rule that if the base runner leaves the base too early before the pitcher releases the ball, they're out. So whenever we got in a situation like this, we would just tell all the girls to lead off. The girl throw a pitch. we get a triple play, and the inning's over. Now, I had an assistant coach. I did this at a game, and I had one of my own assistants nose to nose with me in the dugout saying, "What are you bleeping doing?" And I said, "Well, the girl was dying out there." And he said, "We need to get a win." And that's where it kind of comes down to. And that's where I think the next step comes. And I looked at him and I said, "We're going to win. She can't throw the ball over the plate. Like, we're going to score as many runs as we need to score. We just don't need to score 30 in the first inning. Like, we're okay." And the other aspect is, like, I mean, at the end of the day, what happens if you don't win? Who cares? But we're going to win. And I think that's what it comes to. I think it's an insecurity on the coach's stamp aspect that they can't grasp enough that, yeah, we won. And it's like you've seen coaches that won't empty the bench until there's 45 seconds to go and they have a 30-point lead, because in their mind, they're like, "Oh my God, what?" And they just don't grasp it enough. So what I would have done in this game, I would have packed in a zone. Once we're up 20 or whatever, I'd have packed in a zone. I would have told my defense, "You cannot steal the ball. They shoot. You stay in the zone. You can't steal passes. You can't steal dribbles. When they shoot, if we get a rebound, then we can go down. And then what we'll do at the offensive end is we are shooting nothing but threes, and we're rotating. We're taking turns. You take one, you take one, you take one, you take one. We'll pass it all around, and we get one shot. We do not crash the offensive glass, and we go, and that's how we would play the rest of the game."
And the irony is like, I disagree with you, not in the sense that, like, you shouldn't be trying to do things, but, like, I would not be telling my kids not to play. Like, we might schematically do something different. Like you said, pack it in a zone, right? But, like, we're playing. Like, if they don't get back defensively and we get a clean rebound, I'm not saying, like, your turn to shoot a three and your turn. Like, so again, it's not that you're wrong and it's not that I'm wrong. The point I'm making is there's such a different scale of what we view as doing enough and not doing enough. And so for me, like, packing and playing zone, that, like, to me, that's, I'm doing something. Like, I'm doing what I can, not necessarily telling my kids to stop playing basketball, especially if I have my starters out. And so, yes, if it was a 100% scale, I think most people wake up and they see that score, and it is 100% the winning team's fault. And all I'm saying is that it's not. It's not 100%. If you're commenting on this stuff,
it's 95, it's 90, it's close.
I think it's lower than that. I think it's the majority their fault, but this, like, 100% and just not taking any of the context into it, I disagree with.
Because I've had this argument lots of times with lots of coaches in lots of sports, and one of the things that people just look at in the tunnel vision from the sports aspect, and they say, like, "Well, but we're not teaching the kids. We still want them to be." And it's like, in a 98-4 game, your kids aren't learning anything about basketball anyway. Like, they're not getting they didn't get better at all last night, because the talent level is obviously so lopsided that they didn't improve. But what we did teach them is basic human decency and civility and compassion, and that just bludgeoning an opponent because they're defenseless doesn't make you.
I agree with what you're saying. I think what we disagree on is the level of, like, doing enough, like defining what is doing enough, because based off of what I've read, they took their starters out in the first half. They didn't press in the second half. They didn't score 100 points. So again, to me, it sounds like you took steps. It could have been 100 and something to 4. Like, to me, it's just that, like, once people start judging whether or not you did enough, I just think it's murky. And when you start acting like you're 100% right, they didn't do enough, I just disagree. Maybe they could have done more. Maybe there were things you and I would do differently, but I'm not going to sit here and act as if, like, it's 100% on them. I disagree with that.
But they obviously could have done more, because, like, look at, like, once you get an 8-minute running clock, do you know how hard it is to score 20?
It's very hard.
I mean, so you're like,
yeah.
What did they do? Every time they dribble, okay, they pulled off the press. So every time they dribbled across half court, the girl stole it and took it in and laid it in.
You don't.
Like,
I mean, we don't know. We haven't seen the film.
But they must have, because you can't. If it's a 30-second possession, there's just not enough.
I think the difference for you and I is I would do everything I could where I did not limit my players' abilities the moment they touch the ball. And that's the difference. Like, once you get into my whole philosophy, and again, none of this is implying it's right or wrong. My whole philosophy is I will do everything I can to manage the score of a game as long as I don't have to look a kid in the eye and say, don't try the hardest you can. So I will change the scheme. I will change the play. I will change the lineup. I will do all of those things, but I am not looking at a kid and saying, hey, if you can go 94 feet and lay it in the basket after this rebound, I'm not telling them they can't unless we're running out the clock because there's 30 seconds, 60 seconds left.
See, and that's where I disagree, because you're not – it's unfortunate because you only get 22 games on the schedule, and you want, most people want 22 competitive games, and obviously this one wasn't it. So it's just not, and you can't make it that way. You can't make – but, like, it'd be the same way in football. And I played – I was a quarterback, so I didn't beat on anyone. But you get to the point in football where there are times that you can say to the kids, like, as an offensive lineman, I would never say, you pancake the guy every time. There comes to a point where you're just like, listen, it's okay. The guy's outmatched. Their team is outmatched. Just get into the guy and it's okay.
And I don't even think
there's a point where half speed is plenty, where a quarter speed is plenty.
I don't think you're wrong. We just it's just a difference in philosophy. Like, it's just like, at that point, if it's that late in the game and I have my third string tackle in, I want him to play. Like, I don't know when my third string tackle is going to play again. And if it means he's going to pancake the guy across the line, I don't know what to tell you. Now, I'm not running a Hail Mary to throw 7 more points on, but I'm not telling my individual linemen, like, don't give it your all. Like, I'm not. And that's just, and I'm not right, and you're not wrong. It's just a difference in belief. It's just a difference in philosophy.
But when giving it your all, I mean, so let's just change it. If it's a talent level, I know this is high school. If you've got the 8th graders playing against the 5th graders, and you're just like, well, this is the game, and this is how we did it. So just every time you get the ball, go play as hard as you can. You're not getting any. Your 8th graders aren't getting better by beating up the 5th graders.
No, but that's such a weird. It's a weird analogy. Would you agree?
What?
It's a weird analogy. Would you agree? 8th to 5th grade.
Yes, but obviously when the final score is 98-4, the talent level is so disparaged. It's okay. It's like Penn State football playing against like Cumming football. Like, there's a while where you just tell Penn State's not getting anything out of it. So,
but Penn State would not tell their kids to not try. What they would do is they'd use all the play clock. They'd run it up the middle. But they would never look at their 4th string redshirted freshman and tell him do not try to pancake block. They wouldn't do that. And that's
I think at a level, I think they would. I think it's 77-0.
Yeah.
I think they're just listen, get off, get into the guy, get your hands on him. But we don't, especially because here's the other thing. Even the 3rd string lineman at Penn State weighs 80 pounds more. Whatever the physical disparity is, he's not getting better. He's not getting anything out of it.
But again, not to ruin your analogy, Penn State to Cumming are it's Division I to Division III. I mean, Newman to Columbia Montorville Tech, it's not this great. I mean, one team's just better than the other. It's not there are these levels of well, this is a 6A school and this is a 1A school and they're just beating up on the smart. That's not what's happening here.
No, and I get it. And it's not like when they made the schedule, anyone looks at Newman and says, "How dare you schedule?" That's what I'm saying. I get that, but still, when you show up. When 2 minutes into the game, it's 18-0, then there's an aspect of, regardless of everything else, this is what we're dealing with. And these are human beings on the other side. And, we need to teach compassion. Sure. It's almost like prisoners of war at this point.
But what am I saying that's not see, this is where the gap is. I'm from a team and coaching perspective. I am doing everything I can in the example I gave. I'm taking my starters out. I'm going to the end of my bench. I'm moving to a zone. I'm running things specifically that take time off the clock. Like, I'm doing everything I can from a coaching perspective without telling my kids to not do their best. And I don't see what's wrong with that.
Because when doing your best,
real quick, I should just say again, we have not watched the Newman CVT game. All of this is generalization conversation around blowouts in sports. Go ahead.
Because when doing your best is just going to continually humiliate a team that's already humiliated, then the number one, in my opinion, the number one goal is to no longer do your best. The number one goal is to show compassion to the team that is defeated.
But we are showing compassion because we are already manipulating the game to keep it lesser than what it would be.
You're showing a level of compassion.
And so what I'm saying to you is I'm not judging whether or not you did enough or your levels of compassion. And I don't think people should judge mine because I am showing compassion. I am taking parts of the game and manipulating it to make the other team not lose by an extra 30, 40 points.
I will tell you that I understand what you're saying, but I will judge your level of compassion. That's what we do. I will pass judgment.
No, it's a good conversation because I don't think either of us are wrong. I sincerely mean that. Like, I don't think the points you're making are incorrect at all. It's just not how I would do it. You know what I mean?
I think one of the things that people totally don't get about sports, unless you're really in it, is like 98-4 is awful. It is you don't want to be on either side of that game.
No.
Because it is just uncomfortable. You would rather lose a 2-point game at the buzzer on a heartbreaker on a whatever that was competitive and back and forth and your kids had to play and it was what sports are all about than to be involved in a game like this. And some people think winning by 10 is great. Winning by 20 is better. Winning by 70 is, and it's not. It's just not.
As someone, I've told you these stories before. I have played and coached on teams that were up 30-0 in the first quarter of basketball games. I was a member on a team that has the worst loss in NCAA history. We almost lost by 100 points. I have been on both sides of these things at different levels of basketball. And so this is not coming, I really don't think it's coming from a place of like ignorance. It's just, I think our philosophies differ. And I think everyone has a different marker for where you should start to do these things or manipulate the game. And it's just different.
What was the score in the loss?
The loss was like 160 to like 50 something, I believe. I'd have to wait. It was against West Liberty.
And when you were at Lock Haven or when you were at?
When I was at Lock Haven.
How many of those 160 did you give up personally?
Personally?
Yeah. Like you got beat, you didn't guard anyone, you didn't box out. How many of those are you responsible?
0. I gave up 0 of those. So yeah, it's not
coming
from
lockdown.
Trust me, I have been in CMVT's shoes. Like when you lose by almost 100 points and you set an NCAA record, like it is not, it's not a great feeling. But even going through that, I think West Liberty did some things. They, they took off press and like they did some stuff, but like they weren't going to put in the end of their bench and tell those kids not to try. And I respect that. Like it is what it is.
I disagree. But anyway, be that as it may.
Thanks for watching the Midday Show. Do you have anything else you wanted to add before we head out today? Are you getting snow? I'm getting lots of snow.
Yes, we're getting some now. I'll say this, and we used to make fun of the weatherman, and now that we have so much more technology and satellites, it seems like weather forecasting is generally better. But we make fun of school districts for cancellations when it doesn't come into pass, and then we criticize them when they should have canceled and they didn't. And it is so, when you look at all the logistics that go into it with buses and where are some students coming from, and just, when you travel north, how much the temperatures can drop, and the difference between what's 34 degrees in a place like Williamsport and like what it is at the northern tip of their school district. Some of these weather forecasts are really, really hard. And I totally, we made Matoorsville had a 3-hour delay the other day, and we only got rain. And I joked that now, it's baseball season. We have rain delays instead of,
Sure.
But it is so hard. And anytime the school or any district errs on the side of caution because of any perceived danger to the kids or to the buses, or because of lawsuits or anything like that, I don't blame them. I wouldn't want to be making these calls. And believe me, when it came through last night, because I was sitting on the JV bench when the text came through, and I got to be the one to deliver. It was the happiest the kids have ever seen me when I walked in and the varsity's ready, and I was like, first things first, you don't have school tomorrow. And they were just like it's the nicest thing I ever said to them.
I'm going to be super annoying. I just want to say this out loud because I never actually said it in a public forum. School districts, just give them the day off. Like this whole remote learning and give them the snow day. Just give them the snow day. It's one of the best things. Like you said, their reaction, and they probably acted like a bunch of first graders when you gave the news.
Well, one of them said, "Why did you tell us now? You should have told us after the game." And I said, "I didn't want you to find out. You would have found out like during the game, and then you'd have been all distracted, and you'd have been thinking about what you're going to do tomorrow instead of worrying about the game."
Yes. The snow day should be like an American thing. Like it should. I'm not trying to overblow it and be like it should be federal law, but like a snow day should be a thing that kids experience and enjoy. It's a real thing that I remember from my childhood. I'm sure you remember from your childhood. Like, stop with the remote learning stuff on snow days. Give them the day. Make it up down the road. It's not a big deal. And I promise you they will remember it for the rest of their life.
It is interesting that you bring that up because I know I think Shamokin went remote today.
Mm-hmm.
I think Williamsport, I don't know if they went, but Williamsport goes remote when they have. And it's one of the after effects of COVID now that they've had these technologies. Some schools like Matoorsville does not. Yeah. And because they based it on depending on where the kids live, they don't have as much internet access. And when you have multiple kids in the home, do all the kids have the same availability? Or it would be interesting to see. We'll see this down the road. How many districts still have old-fashioned snow days? Right now, Matoorsville is having an old-fashioned snow day. The kids are off; they have nothing. But there are a lot of schools that don't, and the pros and cons to each. And it is interesting. I agree with you, and I'm sure the teachers are like this too. They're like, "Oh, we got to make it up down the road." But right now, I'll take my Wednesday off. And I'm with you. I agree with you on this one 100%.
Let's end on an agreement. Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. Appreciate it. Be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all of your local news.
I do want to say this, and I want to mention we've been in. Joe Smith we've been texting. We're going to get Joe back in because he was away. I think he did some southern traveling because why would you travel south in the winter? But you have seen Everything Everywhere All at Once?
I haven't. Should that be homework for me?
I think I'm going to watch it tonight because my daughter has been like, you need to watch it. Okay. And I tried it once for like 15 minutes. It was nothing like I expected. And I just wasn't ready for it.
Sure.
And, but now I'm mentally ready. And now that they've got all this, she texted me this. I'm supposed to throw this out at you. Hold on.
I'm ready.
Because my daughter actually watches. She listens to me more on the Midday Show than she does in real life.
I believe that.
If Midday Show talks about Oscar nominations, Quiz Jeff. Michelle Yeoh, Yeoh.
Is she the star of Everything Everywhere?
Okay. Is nominated for Best Actress. When was the last time an Asian performer was nominated for Best Actress? Give me a year.
For Best Actress. She wants the year, not the movie or the show. An Asian actress. Was it the Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon?
It was 1936.
Wow. See, I would have.
This is her name was Merle Oberon.
Okay.
She was quote unquote white passing and hid her heritage, so Hollywood didn't even know until years later.
Fascinating. I'd never heard of her.
Neither have I. And I don't know. She didn't tell me what movie it was. I'd have to look that up. But
I immediately went, what year? That would have been like 2000-ish. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Which, you know what's funny? Now that you mention that, I only ever saw it once.
Okay.
I thought it was clever. I should watch that one. That's one I should dig back out.
Yeah. I watched the other night for the first time since it had been nominated, Slumdog Millionaire, because I remembered seeing it and I never rewatched it. So I wanted to kind of go back and see if it was it was great. It was really
Slumdog is great. And that's one I haven't seen in a long time again.
Yeah. So there you go. Maybe I'll watch Everything Everywhere All at Once tonight.
And you know what else you should watch after that?
What?
John Wick.
Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. I'm Jeff. I actually do have to. I made a pledge. I'm Jeff Everett. He's Mark Messina. We will see you guys at the end of this week.
Later.